Happy Friday, everybody, and good afternoon. If you've been following our virtual content through the Disability Foundation, you probably have seen my face before. Uh, Eric Mullendijk here, and today I'm going to interview one of our sailors. And you might be asking, why is somebody involved with Tetra? How does he get to interview one of the sailing programs? Well, another great aspect of my job is to serve as the volunteer coordinator for the foundation. So that enables me to interact with volunteers and, of course, participants. So I'm honored today to welcome Gerry Burns, who is active in a number of our societies, is also a board member, and one of his passions, fortunately for us, is sailing. Hello, Gerry.
Hey, Eric, good to see you, mate. And nice to connect through this cyber technology we got here going on.
Yes, well, and as anybody who knows you, nobody's surprised by the background there. We've got some moving waves and the beach. So, and we're going to talk about some of those concepts. So,
I
first
wish it
off,
was real, Eric. I wish it was real.
yeah, well, you know what they say, Gerry, if you believe, then it's real, then it's as real as it needs to be.
Totally, yeah. It's looking pretty real, actually. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the vibe.
Yes. So, of course, I quite often will call you Gerry. That's usually the name that I use. But I thought in this interview and to get to know, many of your friends call you Burner. And I
Yeah.
was wondering, how did you get that name? And did you get it post injury, before? What is the story behind Gerry the Burner Burns?
That's funny you ask, Eric. It actually goes way back to way pre-injury to even when I was a kid. And my last name's Burns, so Burner was another form of kind of a nickname around my last name. But I was always a motocross racer and riding motorbikes since I was 5 years old, and racing motocross. All my motocross buddies are the ones that phrase me the burner, and on the track, and that, it's just kind of a good motocross kind of nickname too, for ripping around on the track, and so that's where it all began. And all my best friends and everyone since have just been calling me Burner. Really, that's going
Yeah,
way back.
yeah, and even after your injury, it still fits just as good as ever because my man,
Oh,
I have seen you in your power chair, and I think it only has one gear, and that's fast all the way.
full
So
throttle.
yeah, so and of course you like to do that out on the water and sailing, which leads me to my next question. You've kind of already talked about it. You were an active guy pre-injury and out there, and and for some people, when I explain or do a presentation about sailing, some people will still be shocked about the possibility of getting out and about and what the options are. And how did you first hear about DSA?
Yeah, the sailing program was something that really surprised me because I was always trying to push my limits with different sports and that post injury, and try a bunch of everything and that was possible, and or to try and make it possible if not. And then I heard about sailing. I think through one of the peers in around town here, and and I thought, really, that's possible for someone even as a quadriplegic, can get out there and get into sailing. And then I went down to DSA and checked it out. But first I Googled it then and checked out the program online, and went down to Jericho Beach to see how it's all set up, and to meet the staff, and it was wonderful. Like, I was so pumped that these boats were adaptive and ready to take people out of all different disabilities. And so I signed up immediately to get out there as soon as I could. And I never imagined sailing would be as awesome as it is. I thought it'd be pretty low key kind of sport, really, and mellow. But man, from the first time I got out there, I loved it. And the learning curve in the sport goes forever. There's so much to learn with sailing that you could really get into, whether you want to learn or just ride recreationally or sail recreationally. but that's how I got into it, and I love it so much. It's awesome.
And you talked about, the different aspects and continuing to learn and kind of what drew you into it, but you definitely have evolved as a sailor. And who would you say has been, maybe you have many sources, but who was really your teacher of, giving you that confidence or saying, hey, Gerry, try this? Or who are some of your sailing influences throughout your time at DSA?
Yeah, well, Avi was the first volunteer that took me out in the water, and he's still with DSA and been with DSA for a long time. So it's so cool to see a number of these volunteers with the organization for a long time, and 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 I've always been really motivated to try and excel in different sports, and with sailing, because they have a race club offering as well where you can work in racing. I really just took a huge initiative to try and learn as much as I could and compete from my first year with GSA on the national level, which was called the Mobility Cup. And then I think as you start sailing with these other sailors too from other provinces, and seeing who's just incredible. But I'm inspired by a number of the sailors around Vancouver. Wayne Phillips, who's been one of the fastest and most winningest sailors locally. He's always been a great inspiration to me for trying to get to his kind of skill level. And there's Jack and Jean who are out there, so elderly but such troopers. Terry LeBlanc, who's sailing with Sip and Puff. Technology. There's a number of people I find amazing right here in our Vancouver DSA. Um, and then getting out to those nationals, it's some of those very top national level sailers who are consistently in that top five that really kind of try to inspire me to get faster too.
Sure. Well, thanks, Gerry, for sharing some of your stories. And you covered a lot of ground there. So just to break that down, for those who might not know and might be learning about sailing for the first time, um, sailing in Vancouver happens out at Jericho Beach, and there's different levels. If I was to say to you, what's the difference between a recreational sail, what's the difference between learning how to sail, and what's the difference between race club? How would you describe those three different experiences?
Yeah, the recreational sails are, you have the option of going with a volunteer and being as hands-on or hands-off for the sailing as you want. You could basically just go for a ride in the back of the boat and let someone take you out. Or you can try and take as much action on pulling the ropes or getting involved as much as you want. And it's a nice hourly sail around Jericho Beach there. And the race clubs, it gives you an opportunity to practice on a more regular basis in a group of like-minded sailors that are all looking to race and hone their skills. And so you get a little bit more practice time, get to do sometimes a full day on the water on Sundays in race club practice sessions, and some skills to work on from coaching. And then there's regatta race days where you get to do the racing experience, like the Cascadia Cup, and it's just awesome to be out there in the pack with all your friends, and you're all weaving between each other in your boats and getting ready for the starting horn, and to see how close the competition can be, even on varying tacks where it seems you're miles apart. But then when you get to that windward mark, everyone's within just right there in the pack, all clustered together again. It's awesome. So yeah, the difference between recreation and the race club is quite vast, but it's awesome that the organization offers that variety to all levels of sailors.
And as you said, when you started out, somebody was in the boat. So just to emphasize, the boats are built safe. You don't have to sail alone. And another thing that you mentioned, Gerry, that I wanted to follow up on, you said about Terry LeBlanc and Sip and Puff, and can you just kind of talk about how the boats are modified? You know, I have limited hand function. I know you have a more stronger side, but that doesn't stop you out on the water because of certain modifications. Can you talk about how the boats have been modified to enhance and encourage that independence?
Yeah, Eric, and that was a good point that you made about the boats being untippable. Yeah, because you can really get them heeled over, like leaned over on a good windy day. And when you're new to sailing, it's a pretty wild feeling, and you sometimes wonder, are they really untippable? But yeah, I think I've taken that right to the limits on a number of times and tested it myself, and they are completely untippable. Excuse me, and unsinkable. They have a neutral buoyancy, so they won't sink, and they're awesome boats, especially designed for the adaptive community, with extra thought into legroom and transferring in and out, safety being a big one, and convenience for people with different abilities to be able to sail it on their own. And for myself, because I'm really quite paralyzed, and my one side though has quite a bit more function to operate a joystick. I can sail the boat simply with a joystick, and it's amazing that I'm doing the rudder with just a joystick, and I can actually do the sails with the windlass, and um, and the windlass by just forward and back. I can adjust the jib and the mainsail. So I'm out there totally independent, and have been since about my third sail, I think. And it's just amazing that with only a joystick, I can do all the sailing functions I need to do. It's incredible. And then for others, depending on their ability, if they have better arms, there's a tiller that they can use, and then they can do the ropes manually. Or in Terry LeBlanc's example, somebody who's completely paralyzed pretty much from the neck down, you can actually sail. And this one's really amazing with the sip and puff technology, where they just blowing or sucking on the straw, they can steer and adjust the sails and do everything and be highly competitive out there, just like everyone else. And just with the sip and puff technology, it's pretty amazing.
Well, that's one of the things when I describe sailing, I tell people if you're good at video games, you can learn how to sail a boat, as you mentioned, Gerry, from the joystick. For those who haven't had the experience, it does involve quite a bit of skill. Now, I'm not good at video games, so maybe that's why I'm completely a recreational sailor. But the trick is really to ride with the wind, right? There is different techniques that you can use to be faster. And talk a little bit about what a race club, because you talked about sailing for an hour recreationally. But when you have a race club or regatta, that's a little different, isn't it? There's kind of a race course and more time on the water. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, Eric, the race club will start in the morning, usually meeting around 10 o'clock. We're out on the water around 11 o'clock. And we're working on the skills and practicing with our race club friends and the competitors, fellow aggressive sailors, the whole mix. And we are often out there until 3 o'clock on the water, 3:30. And so it's a nice full day of practice and mock racing on those race club days. And it's an amazing experience. And then when we have the regatta races, they're mixed with different fleets. Sometimes we're racing against able-bodied sailors from Kitsilano. Sometimes Burrard Civic Marina is out there, and we get these experiences to race with a wide variety of fleets, all different sizes of boats. And we're scored still separately on our own as our own DSA fleet. We run at the same time, just our disabled sailing association crew. And so they start us all separately, and it's just so much fun being out there with all the different fleets and the different boats, being scored on our own with all your friends, and it's a perfect day at the beach, really, and on the water.
Yeah, well, and of course, I've seen over the years the camaraderie and the friendships, and as you mentioned, not just with your fellow sailors, but with the volunteers. So another thing I wanted to follow up on that you mentioned is you've talked about Mobility Cup. And for those who don't know, Mobility Cup, I always picture it as kind of like, disabled sailing's Olympics, is it's hosted at the different sailing clubs, and it's people from all over Canada and even all over the world. When you've competed against people in the States, from New Zealand. How many times have you gone to Mobility Cup?
Yeah, I love the racing, and especially at the higher level like that with the nationals. And so right from the very first year, I started with DSA. I went into the Silver Fleet, which was in Vancouver, and then I moved up to the Gold Fleet the following year, which is the advanced level of sailing, and being and competed in 9 straight Canadian nationals out of 10 years. And so in the 10 years I was sailing with DSA, I competed in 9 events. I only missed one actually so far.
And as you said, the gold is sailing on your own. So you're out there, and it's up to you to make all the decisions. And I don't want you to be too modest, because I know that at one time at the Mobility Cup, you finished second overall, so second place, and that you have won some races and represented Vancouver DSA and yourself very well. And
Oh,
you
cheers.
and this is going to Mobility Cups, giving you an opportunity to sail out at Victoria, Halifax. You've even done some sailing out on a lake in Alberta and Kelowna and such.
Yeah, it's been amazing scenery, amazing places it takes you, and sailing on the St. Lawrence River in Montreal, and that's where I got that second, which I was really proud of, because the Quebec sailors are a fast bunch, and that was out on their local waters, so that one felt extra great. And Halifax, it was amazing and beautiful. Ottawa, and Alberta was in the Rocky Mountains with snow that came out of nowhere, and it was just amazing. Grizzly bears walking on the beach. We had cabin accommodation. It was just a beautiful place. It was so like a postcard, and being out there on these waters in the blue lake with some high winds and some grizzly bears and snowfall. It was beautiful.
And you've also talked about you had some excellent experiences and made some excellent friendships when you were in Hamilton, and
Oh yeah.
yeah. So that's just an idea, again, of things to work towards. But myself, I am strictly a recreational sailor. I love to go with somebody and work on getting the sun. And you may be wondering, when is all this going to take place? Well, under the current COVID-19, we are still mapping out how we'll be offering the sailing program this year. But when we do, stay tuned to our Facebook page, the Disability Foundation Facebook page, for updates on that. For those who don't know, it's $10 per sail, and kids sail for free. So if you're thinking, how much does this cost? As Gerry will tell you, we love everybody just to get out and take part. We will supply radios and life jackets, and again, somebody can't sail with you. So fingers crossed that,
Yeah.
like Gerry, that we get to get out on the water at some point this year. But and as we can tell in this interview, Gerry, you're a positive guy. And another thing, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, your kind of role with Race Club is you do a lot of the encouragement and encouraging people to get out there, and you're kind of what's called the fleet captain. So talk a little bit about how you keep up your energy and your ways of motivating others, and where does that come
Well,
from?
thanks for all your good words there, Eric, and thanks for everything you do. And this is all possible from the organization, that provides this awesome service, and the volunteers are amazing. So I'd like to say thanks to everyone who's involved, because it's such an awesome opportunity and great sport for people to get into. And you're doing a good job there, Eric. Yeah, and what was the question again?
How
Oh,
do
fleet
you,
captain.
yeah, the fleet captain, and where do you get the ability to encourage others? Where does that come from?
Yeah, I just yeah, I love these opportunities we have, and one of my mottos has always been live life, and trying to make the most of it. And I think that just seeing these people that are just loving, trying to try new things with a disability, I love it. And I love to see them strive at what they're doing, and making the most of life. And so I'm just happy to try and help see the sport grow, and get others into it. And that's kind of what I try to do as a fleet captain, is help encourage newer sailors, and to help stoke people out on, and try to build the participation, because it's awesome, and the more the better. And we have a great crew, but we would love to have more sailors out there too. And I just love to see the growth of the sailor skills, and the growth of the sport as well.
And my last question, just to let people know that you're always looking for a new challenge, and you also have really been the kind of the spark or the point person, whatever term you want to use, for disabled surfing. So talk about one of your newer endeavors over the last couple of years, and how you've really taken that on. And for those who might not know about surfing, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, cool, Eric. Appreciate you asking. And surfing was a big part of my life pre-injury. I was right from the '90s, and a little bit earlier. I'd been surfing, was a massive passion of mine. The motocross, and the surfing. And after my injury, just after the turn of the millennium, adaptive surfing was really new, and just starting to get out there in some ways, and relatively, relatively quite unknown. And I heard about a quadriplegic, Jesse Billauer, in California, who was surfing, and it really motivated me, especially since I was newly disabled. And I went down to Cali, and I've done some adaptive surfing, and met a bunch of these guys, and it was a life changer for just another sport and another possibility of what can be done. And I pursued surfing, adaptive surfing, as much as I could, jet setting around different locations of the world to catch waves, which requires a lot of help for me as a incomplete quadriplegic. I have a group that would help paddle me out, and not even try going to these, like Mexico, by myself, and having to round people up to help me out and paddle me out, and then give me a push into the wave. But it's awesome how the sport has grown. And so my own involvement was, it was a really big life changer for me. And as well as the sailing, all these opportunities that you discover are available. And I just wanted to help the sport grow, because here in Canada, we really didn't have much. And as far as I know, I think as kind of the pioneer of adaptive surfing, back then in Canada. And I really wanted to see it brought home to develop here more too. And so I've been working with Surf Canada, and I called them up, and we've been working nicely together to try and build the sport, with Pascal, a friend, and like-minded surfer from Quebec, who's been helping with that as well. And seeing it grow to developing a Team Canada. And so I was able to recruit a number of surfers, for the surf team, and we've really done well. And we're 5 years of building the Team Canada surf team, and we've done 4 world championships, and we've had a girl, Victoria, who's won 2 gold medals back to back, another surfer, Ling, who's won 2 silver medals back to back, and we've also had others win silver and bronze too. So as a newer country that I've been fortunate to be a part of in developing, Canada's a name to be reckoned with on the world stage now, and it's really been developing year after year, and we'd love to try and get it more grassroots as well, and getting younger people trying it, and we're working on developing that angle of it as well, and it's awesome that organizations like Disability Foundation and some others are receptive to possibly expanding these programs, and logistically it's tougher here in Canada, but we where there's a will, there's a way, and we're getting more and more interest every year. It's really awesome.
Well, you are definitely a shining example of that. Where there's a will, there's a way. Now, all this encouraging that you do of surfing and all the organizing, do you yourself currently compete?
I had to retire, from it a few years back. As a C1, like highest level incomplete quad, I just some of the breathing issues I was having were too much, and it's a very unique situation though that I'm in, and I don't think that poses much of a problem on a lot of the other athletes. But for myself, I had to make a tough decision at one point to whether it was good for me out there, and so I had to retire, and then that's what's really pumped my ambition to try and build the sport from others, for others too. At that point, I was doing stuff as soon as I was getting into adaptive surfing. I was promoting through conferences and stuff the sport, but when I decided that it's probably time for me to step down, I really put in concentrated effort to devote myself to helping the sport grow for others, and hopefully that it can have that same effect that it had on me, where it's a life changer for a number of people, and I think it totally has been.
Well,
And
as you said, some gold medal winners. I saw the pictures of Victoria who won, and for those who wanted to see videos of disabled surfing and how it works, could you just go to YouTube?
You totally could, yeah. Googling adaptive surfing on YouTube, you'll find a number of tons of people now going around the world that are doing surfing at amazing levels with all the different disabilities. And it's amazing what some of these surfers can do on the world stage too. And the event we go to every year in California is the ISA World Paris Surfing Championships, and they're usually in December, and you can actually YouTube some of that, surfing to see firsthand how the worlds look. And Surf Canada has website showing the adaptive surf team we have presently as well, and so there's a lot of resources out there for people to access surf, to get into checking out and learning more about adaptive surfing.
Well, Gerry, I can't thank you enough for your time. I know you're always a busy guy, and for those who want to know more about disabled sailing, just go to the Disability Foundation website at www.disabilityfoundation.org. You'll not only find out about disabled sailing, but the Foundation's other programs. And of course, stay tuned to Connect Together for more original content and interviews like this. Gerry, it's been great to touch base.
You too, Eric.
I look forward to a time where we can meet face to face in person, but it's been great to see you. Thanks for sharing your stories and information, and really appreciate it.
Right on. Great seeing you too, Eric, and appreciate it as well. Thanks for this. I love the opportunity.
All right. Have a great rest of your day.
You too, mate. Cheers.